Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got another franchise ranking for you guys today, and I'm sticking with Marvel with Captain America. Now, I was never the biggest fan of Captain America myself. I didn't know too much about him until the 2011 MCU film. Uh, he's just this American that's pure at heart. He's the good versus the evil. He will never do anything that he think would harm anybody else. He's just your typical good guy, right? And he gets experimented on. He was really small and puny, but had a big heart. And they experiment on him and make his whole body as big as his heart. Really strong, really fast, essentially like a superhuman. So, like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan, but after watching a few of these movies, sign me up. We also got the new TV show that just released, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I just thought it'd be a really good time to do a ranking on the Captain America movies themselves, since I don't think we'll be seeing them in any full length films anytime soon. Anyway, the way they wrapped up his storyline in the MCU. So without further ado, let's get into this. Coming into number 4, we got Captain America from 1990. Now, this is a film I've only watched for the first time the other day. I've only heard bad things about this. I heard people say this is one of the worst comic book movies ever made, or superhero movies. And while it's not good, I wouldn't say it's the worst I've ever seen either. I mean, this movie's at a big disadvantage coming out before Marvel really had any successful superhero movies at the time. Only DC was doing it with Superman and Batman. Michael Keaton's Batman at the time were the only two big superhero movies there. So DC had the advantage at this time. So this one starts off pretty quickly. We get right into it. Steve Rogers gets sent to the army like right away. In no time, he's getting experimented on, and he's against the Red Skull. He gets frozen just like in the MCU films. But that happens at the very end of the first Captain America movie in the MCU. In this one, it's like the first 25 minutes or so, all that stuff already happens. And then we're set in the modern day 1990. We got the Captain America suit itself. It doesn't look too bad, but they got the stupid fake ears on his head, which is like, who made that decision? That just looks so dumb. Why not just not have ears on the suit? They're obviously underneath. Anyway, that was a poor decision in the costume department, but for the rest of the costumes, they don't look too bad. Even Red Skull, I heard a lot of people complain about his look. Yeah, he looks foolish when he has a skin over top of his red face, but when it's actually showing the Red Skull, it almost has like a gusher look to it. It looks like more gooey than in the newer movie. The newer movie does look a little too CGI, I find. It's a little too cleaned up. While this one I actually liked, I'm going to call it the gusher look. So obviously we get some fighting scenes with Red Skull and Steve, and a few chase scenes and stuff. The effects aren't great in this. Obviously 1990, and they didn't have the budget, or this didn't even get a theatrical release at the end. It got pulled right before the theaters, but it was meant for theaters. So the effects aren't great. They definitely look goofy at times. The actual like choreography with the fighting is pretty atrocious. It's this non-stop camera cuts. Goes to punch here, it will cut to him already getting hit, so you don't have to show the punch. So I just imagine this was a bitch to edit. And yeah, you can really tell with the quick cuts. It's almost like watching Resident Evil Final Chapter. Every fight scene, it's like cut. And it's annoying. You can't really make out anything in the hand-to-hand combat scenes anyway. And the tone of this movie is just a bit darker, I find, than the MCU's version. While it's goofy and it's cheesy because of the time it came out, the subject matter, there's a few parts where I'm like, wow, they really went there. Like, just in the very first, it shows the origin story for Red Skull. He was actually just this regular kid that was super smart, and they just picked him out and experimented on him, right? And gave him that evil rage. And just little things throughout the story, I'm like, wow, that was pretty dark. But then something else will happen that's super goofy right after, which just throws the tone right out the window. And how many people are going to fall for Steve Rogers' pull over, I gotta get sick routine? It's like he does that twice in this movie just so he can steal someone's car. It's like, that ain't going to work forever. You can't keep using that over and over. But it did make me laugh, especially the second time when it happened. I'll try to throw a clip in here if I can.
Would you pull the car over, please? I think I'm going to be sick.
What?
Would you please pull over the car? I am going to get sick.
Are you okay? Yeah. Hold it. No, wait. Don't leave me out here.
Sharon, could you pull over for a minute? I think I'm gonna be sick.
Captain America is car sick? What are you doing? Wait a minute, what are you doing?
So all in all, this I don't think it was a complete waste of time. I think if you're a fan, a really big fan of Marvel and want to see how this story was originally handled, I think you should check this out. Or if you're a fan of Captain America, but if you just don't really care about Marvel too much in that, you should probably skip this one. It's probably not going to be for you. I would just say that the first half of this movie is super rushed, and then the second half is handled a little bit better. But all in all, it's not a good movie. Now, coming into third place, we got Captain America, The First Avenger, 2011. Now, this is the first Captain America film we got in the MCU. This story also repeats a few of the same beats as the 1990s version, but it improves on every aspect of that and tightens up the story. We get a longer origin for him before he gets to experiment, so we can spend a little bit more time with the character and understand him a little bit better. Him and his friend Bucky. It's cool to see Bucky before him being the Winter Soldier, because we're so used to seeing him like that now that he's almost like a completely different character in this. And it's just a great first act in this, like right up to after the experiments to when they go to war. I found it's done almost perfectly. Chris Evans as Captain America was the perfect choice. Who would have thought? Because to me, when I first seen this movie, I was like, all I could think of was non-13 movie. And it's hard to see him as Captain America, but now I finally got it in my brain after all these years. I'm like, okay, I don't have to think about non-13 movie anymore when I see him. But yeah, he was a great choice. They did pretty good job with the CGI in that. I've had him as like a puny little guy to when he gets friggin' jacked. We got great chemistry between all the characters. All the actors did a fantastic job, from Chris Evans to the one who played Peggy, the Miss Carter. Their relationship was genuine, and I really felt the chemistry there. Also, like I said, Bucky did a pretty good job, and it was cool seeing him in a different version of him, like the before. Tommy Lee Jones killed it as the head lieutenant or whatever in the army. And yeah, the characters were just really well written, and I think that they were well casted as well. We also get the Tesseract thrown into this story just so that they can build their Infinity War origin, I guess, towards Thanos. It starts here too with the Tesseract. That's what the Red Skull gets, and he pretty much uses that to power all of his weapons. The weapons part, where they're all like shooting the blue shit, it's kind of it's not the greatest evil plan or whatever, but it's okay. It's serviceable. I feel like the Red Skull is underutilized though in this film. We do not get a great ending battle, I feel, with him. It's the way it ends with him. I'm like, it was kind of cheap, kind of a letdown in a way. There was no big finale for me. We do get a cool little fight when they're going to his base and trying to take it over, Captain America and his crew. But once we get the confrontation with him and the Red Skull on the blimp or whatever on the ship, I feel like it kind of sours the ending there a little bit. It just didn't feel like a proper showdown to this film when we got such a good and epic start, like first half. The second half started to diminish a bit for me. And there's just a few scenes, like the train scene, like the scene where Bucky falls off down the cliff and loses his arm, where that whole scene feels pretty fake. You can totally tell the CGI everywhere, the backdrop to the train, like everything, nothing looked real there to me. When other parts of the film looked really well shot and real, there's certain scenes that just like stands out because of the CGI used. And yeah, it just brings you out of the film because you can tell it's fake. But all in all, this is a pretty great movie. Definitely one worth checking out. And I actually grown to like this a lot more, because when I first seen it, I was lukewarm on it, but now I think it's a good film. So I got number 2 and number 1 left. And let me tell you, these are the hardest two to choose between. They're both amazing films, some of the best. I say they're both top 10 MCU films, and they're both different, so it's really hard to choose which is better, but I'm going to have to go with my number 2 is The Winter Soldier. And I know a lot of people love this film. I do too. This is a very different film from the rest of the Marvel movies. It doesn't feel like a superhero movie. It feels like an action crime thriller, or like almost like a spy movie with Captain America in it and kick-ass action scenes. Let me tell you, this is probably the best hand-to-hand combat scenes you'll get out of any Marvel movie to this day, in my opinion. They're shot beautifully, no quick cuts like in the 1990 version. You get all the punches in that land. You see everything. All the backflips, and man, the choreography for this movie must have been insane. Especially when you're talking about Black Widow. Every time she's fighting someone, she's doing like 3 backflips and spinning around them, going around on one guy to another guy and dropping both of them. It's just crazy, and it definitely elevates the film a whole lot for me. And this is the film where we find out that Hydra is working within Shield, and they're pretty much taking it over from within. So they pretty much have to abandon ship with Shield. Nick Fury pretends to die until the end of the film. We found out he was just like hiding, so they would think he was dead. And man, that scene where they're trying to kill him into the vehicle, that is a really standout moment for me in this film. They're shooting it up like crazy, and it's just the tension just builds and builds because you figure they're gonna get him. Even though I watched this before, I think that every time they're like, "Man, there's no way he's surviving this," but it's just very well shot and directed. Again, just like all the scenes with Winter Soldier, with Bucky showing up, it's just holy shit, man. Now this is an action movie. This is better than most action movies that I've ever seen, actually, and it's a comic book film. We also get an update on the Captain America suit. I think it looks better. It's a little bit more modern. We get a Black Widow with her straight hair, and she's looking fine like always. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson just really owns that role. I'm really excited to see Black Widow when her film comes out because she really elevates all these films. She was the best part about Iron Man 2. She's not the best part about the Winter Soldier, but she's definitely up there with everything else that's great. One more scene that stands out to me again. There's a lot of big standout scenes in this, whether you're talking about the Nick Fury scene with the car or the elevator scene in the Shield building when they're all coming in the elevator with Captain America, and he knows that they're gonna turn on him. He can just tell just by looking around. And man, just such great action scenes in this film. That's the best aspect that I can say about it is the action. It's top notch. And I feel Hydra's plan in this is pretty cool too. How they plan on putting up the 3 ships in the air and taking out people with their guns in the air by targeting them. I found that was a pretty cool little plan for them. Definitely a step up from the first Avenger. I really don't have any negatives to say about this film. I think the little bit of comedy sprinkled in was used very well. The chemistry was amazing between Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans. And the movie is just excellent, and it's one of the better MCU films. An easy 9 out of 10 for me. But coming in the first place, we got Captain America Civil War. It's only first place by a little slither. And the reason for that is this feels more like an Avengers movie than it does a Captain America movie. So we get a way bigger cast. We get like all the superheroes in it. So it's like, well, you got an advantage here, Civil War. Even though, compared to the Avengers movies, the bad guy is essentially themselves. For the most part, they're against each other, and it just makes for a great confrontation between the two sides, whether you're talking Tony Stark's crew or Captain America's crew. This was the only film out of this list that I actually got to see in theaters in 3D, which you can drop the 3D. It really did nothing for me, but yeah, great experience in theaters. I missed the first 10 minutes, but it didn't really matter. I still caught what was going on. Uh, it's just a great film. We get, again, great action scenes. Not as good as Winter Soldier. I think the action scenes, aside from the airport, man, that airport scene, it's in top 5 moments in the MCU, I'm sure, for most people. It is just so epic. You get all your favorites against each other, and they add in, we get a few origin stories in this too. We get to see the Black Panther's origin story from his father getting killed and him seeking revenge against the Winter Soldier to do it. So we get his origin. We get Spider-Man's origin with Tony Stark going to get Spider-Man to join their crew. So this movie just has so much in the 2 hour and some runtime. It's just packed with goodies. This is not only like a sequel to Winter Soldier, but it's a sequel to Age of Ultron and Ant-Man as well, as they all kind of line up into this film. And it just works so well story-wise. And I just really like that how Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, he just doesn't let his guard down. He stands up for what he believes in, while the rest of the Avengers, you can see they're struggling on which side to choose on their values themselves, but Steve Rogers never loses sight of that. He is still the same character from when we first met him, and he never really changes in a good way. He doesn't let his guard down. He sticks with what he thinks is right. He's the good, and he's always against the evil, but even though when the good can have consequences, he still, no matter what, he'll choose the good over the bad. Which I like that. They don't compromise his character for the story, and it just works so well. And putting him up against Tony Stark, how he feels like they're dangerous nowadays, and they should maybe be controlled, which is very weird because that kind of goes against what Iron Man started out as, where the government was trying to shut him down, and he was like, no. Anyway, it just calls for a very unique feud between the two crews. Now, I just find this movie epic on all fronts. From, like I said, all the fighting scenes are great all the way through. Obviously, I said the airport is a huge standout, but I do like the end fight in Russia, where we get Winter Soldier and Steve Rogers against Tony Stark himself. 2 versus 1 fight, because he's pissed that he finds out Winter Soldier killed his parents. Another cool thing to tie in the whole story together. And for the amount of story and characters they brought in, very little plot holes. The only negative I could really give this film is that with all the fights and with all these big, powerful characters, no one really gets hurt. That's the only problem I have with this film. Aside from Black Panther's dad getting killed and that, but that was to move the story along. Like, the airport scene, I think, would have really... Like, the only thing that would have made it any better was if you would have killed off one of the characters. I'm sorry to say, but that would have really been a punch to the gut, you know, an unexpected surprise, if you will, because, like I said, they're all so powerful and fighting each other, but in deep down, you know, they're not gonna kill each other. It's like they're almost just like wrestling, like play wrestling. they'll knock them down, but they won't kill them, and that's pretty much the only flaw in this whole film is everybody's a little too safe, but it plays out in a very entertaining way. There's tons of action. There's a great story. Lots of themes and messages about the good and bad, and what you think is right, and what you should stand up for. That I think overpower my little flaw about nobody dying, or no major superheroes dying. But yeah, that would definitely propel this film up to maybe the top film. This would rival Infinity War, I think, if they would have went out and just killed one of them. But that might have been a little too dark for Marvel at the time. They do hurt Rhodey. He gets shot in the sky, and Falcon totally gets blamed for it when he just moved out of the way from Vision's shot. It's like, really, Vision should get in trouble for that. And he was on Rhodey's side. So, but no one got killed or anything. They got hurt, but they all recovered from it. And that is my only flaw for this film. It's practically a perfect film. I'll give it another 9 out of 10 aside from that little flaw. But yeah, these are top tier MCU films, this and The Winter Soldier. So guys, yeah, that's my ranking on Captain America. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my ranking, or would you change it up a bit? Would you have the 1990 film up any higher than last place? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. So drop them down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.